This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
We're working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila in Thailand. Hello, Esther.
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to all our viewers. I'm Esther Odanga from Thailand Bureau, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. Myanmar's junta has charged Aung San Suu Kyi with committing electoral fraud during the 2020 polls. According to state media, the latest in a barrage of allegations against her since her party won in a landslide.
So everything that
journalist Danny Fenster says realizing he was freed from Myanmar prison and returning home was the greatest feeling, and speaks about his time in jail, where he says he was not mistreated.
Out on the tarmac waiting for...
A naval squadron consisting of 5 ships of the Russian Pacific Fleet is docked at the Manila South Harbor for a port visit.
And the top-class tour badminton returns to Asia for the first time in 10 months as men's world #1 Kento Momota heads a strong lineup for 3 events in Indonesia, culminating in the season-ending World Tour Finals.
First in our news, Myanmar's junta has charged Aung San Suu Kyi with committing electoral fraud during the 2020 polls, according to state media today, the latest in a barrage of allegations against her since her party won in a landslide. Detained since the putsch, Suu Kyi, 76 years old, has been charged with illegally importing walkie-talkies, sedition, and corruption, and faces decades in jail if convicted. 15 other officials, including former President Win Myint and the former chairman of the Election Commission, faced the same charge, according to the report. Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy, or NLD, saw its support increase in the 2020 vote compared to the 2015 election, trouncing a military-aligned party. But the junta has cited fraud during the poll as its reason for seizing power and ending Myanmar's democratic interlude. Suu Kyi will hear the verdict in her trial for incitement against the military on November 30, according to a source with knowledge of the matter. She faces 3 years in jail if convicted. Junta Chief Min Aung Hlaing has said fresh elections will be held and the state of emergency lifted by August of 2023, extending the initial timeline the military gave when it seized power.
Meanwhile, an American journalist jailed for 6 months by Myanmar's military rulers arrived back in the United States on Tuesday, one day after he was pardoned and released from prison. Take a look.
It's a long time coming, it's a day, it's a moment that I've been imagining so intensely for so long. It surpasses everything I imagined.
Where's the father? Get over here, huh?
Sorry.
How are you?
It feels incredible, said Danny Fenster, hugging his parents after landing at New York's JFK Airport at around 8 in the morning. Fenster, 37, arrived with former U.S. diplomat Bill Bill Richardson, who helped facilitate his release. Looking gaunt and unshaven after his ordeal in captivity, Fenster said his return home had been a long time coming. Fenster has handed an 11-year sentence last week for incitement, unlawful association, and breaching visa rules. He was freed on Monday, a day before he was to face terror and sedition charges that could have seen him jailed for life, and flew to Doha.
Meanwhile, journalist Danny Fenster says realizing he was freed from Myanmar prison and returning home was the greatest feeling, and speaks about his time in jail where he says he wasn't mistreated. Former U.S. diplomat Bill Richardson, meanwhile, who secured Fenster's release, describes the meeting with Myanmar's junta leader Min Aung Hlaing, saying discussions about helping with COVID-19 vaccine distribution led to a little bit of understanding on the case of Danny. Take a look.
So everything that everybody was able to do within their mandates, this time it worked. And I'm incredibly grateful to seeing Bill and his team there. It's out on the tarmac waiting for me. It's just the greatest feeling I can ever remember having.
Were you mistreated or threatened in any way by the prison authorities?
No, I wouldn't say that. I got myself into trouble there trying to push boundaries, and that caused small confrontations that, I didn't know what would come of them, so I was a little worried, but nothing. I wasn't physically threatened or anything. I thought I got into a good mood, and I thought I had sort of, had this change in perspective. But then, you get a little setback, and then you realize, well, you don't change your perspective and you're finished. You have to do that every day. So every day it's sort of up and down, and then you have some dark moments, and then you have some days that are just pretty much completely fine. So I'm going to take time to celebrate and to spend time with my family, and then, continue concentrating on all the other, not just journalists and prisoners of conscience in Myanmar and everywhere else.
Yes, it helped that I think we went there, our team, especially Steve Ross, who is an expert in this area, and said, there's problems with the delivery of humanitarian assistance and vaccines, government of Myanmar. How can we fix that? And I think those discussions led to a little bit of understanding on the case of Danny. We were in Myanmar for 8 hours to get Danny, 8 hours, in and out. And it took a last meeting with the leader, the military leader, to get a decree where Danny was given an amnesty. And we brought him home. I said to him, this would be a gift, a humanitarian gesture to the American people. And this was the right thing to do. This was a journalist doing his job. This was a journalist reporting on what was happening. And he shouldn't suffer. I took a little heat because they said, well, you met with this leader and you legitimize him by meeting with him. Even though I'm not a member of the government, even though we don't take orders from the government.
Richardson visited Myanmar earlier this month on what was described as a private humanitarian mission. He said at the time that the U.S. State Department had specifically asked him not to raise Fenster's case during his visit. But Richardson did so, insisting that he was working on a private capacity. Let's listen in.
Were you acting in official capacity? Were you acting as an emissary for the U.S.?
No. I just said that. No, I don't work for the U.S. government. I was not an emissary.
Now, Bill Richardson has served as an ambassador, cabinet secretary, and governor of New Mexico. But since he returned to being a regular U.S. citizen, he has dedicated his life to a role with similarly high stakes. Richardson is a freelance envoy specializing in high-profile, difficult negotiations to obtain the release of Americans detained by hostile governments. And on Monday, he celebrated his 74th birthday with this latest victory, facilitating the release of American journalist Danny Fenster from a prison in Myanmar, where he was jailed for 11 years last week and faced a possible life sentence. In parallel with his traditional career in politics, Richardson developed a reputation as a diplomatic gunslinger and was even sometimes dubbed the Indiana Jones of American diplomacy. He held high-stakes private face-to-face meetings with a who's who of strongmen of the U.S. pariah list, including Iraq's Saddam Hussein, Cuba's Fidel Castro, North Korea's Kim Jong-il, father of current leader Kim Jong-un, and Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro. The Richardson Center for Global Engagement says one of its primary missions is negotiating for the release of prisoners and hostages held by hostile regimes or criminal organizations.
Now, the United States, which has said Fenster was unjustly and wrongfully detained, welcomed his release. Take a look.
Join Secretary Blinken and the rest of the country in welcoming the release of U.S. journalist Daniel Fenster from prison in Burma, where he was wrongfully detained for almost 6 months. We are extremely grateful that Danny will soon be reunited with his family as we continue to call for the release of others who remain unjustly imprisoned in Burma.
More than 100 journalists have been arrested since the push, according to reporting ASEAN monitoring group. It says at least 30 are still in detention.
In other news, the family of a Malaysian man facing imminent execution, despite concerns he is mentally disabled, has pleaded with Singapore to give him a second chance. Nagenthran K. Dharmalingam, sentenced to death in 2010 for trafficking a small amount of heroin into Singapore, was originally set to be hanged last week after losing a series of appeals. Let's listen in.
Because all our family are putting prayers that something miracle will happen for my brother, that he can get the sentence to jail. And suddenly they give judgment that Nagin going to be hang sentence. So that moment we can't accept it, and very painful, sir. Normally I will ask. Please spare my brother from the gallows, and then at least can get a second chance to life, that he get the jail sentence.
Now let's go over to Indonesia, where a tank in the country's largest oil refinery caught fire on Saturday that may have started by a lightning strike, according to an official. Take a look.
Bila kondisi tangki ya, ini bisa kita isolate ya, sehingga 36102 saja yang memang terjadi tank fire. Untuk tangki di sebelahnya ini bisa kita lakukan cooling dan bisa kita kendalikan dan kita isolate ya. Terkait dengan kejadiannya tidak ada korban jiwa ya. Pekerja-pekerja yang ada di dalam, terutama yang pihak ketiga, itu bisa kita evakuasi untuk keluar dari area gelap.
The blaze broke out at the tank of Cilacap Oil Refinery in Java Island, owned by state oil company Pertamina, during a lightning storm, said the refinery's general manager Eko Sunarno. The officials were currently trying to extinguish the fire before they could investigate the exact cause. Sunarno further said no casualties were recorded, as both workers and locals in nearby neighborhoods were evacuated immediately. This was the second time a fire raging in the Silacap oil refinery, which processes 270,000 barrels of crude oil daily. This year, a similar tank was in flames after a lightning storm. In March, about 1,000 people were evacuated as fire engulfed 4 oil storage tanks at Balongan Refinery in West Java. Before the fire, an explosion was heard as lightning and thunders hit the area.
Back here in the country, a naval squadron consisting of 5 ships of the Russian Pacific Fleet is docked at the Manila South Harbor for a port visit. Take a look. The Russian Navy contingent is composed of corvette Gremyashi, 2 submarines, tanker Pechenga, and support vessel Alatao, according to the Philippine Navy spokesperson Commander Benjo Negranza in a statement on Tuesday night. A corvette is a small warship for anti-submarine and escort missions. The ships arrived on November 16. No details are available on how long the squadron would stay, but the Navy said the visit was intended for a routine port replenishment and rest for the crew. And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. Esther and I will be back right after this.
Hi, I'm Alex Calleja, isang podcaster, YouTuber, writer, director, at isang stand-up comedian for more than 12 years. Ang sarap maging komedyante sa Pilipinas, no? Dahil paborito ng mga Pinoy, pagsaluan ang mga nakakatawang eksena sa paligid. Pero dahil sa pandemic, ang kulitan, naging online na lang. Naranasan mo na ba to? Ginising ka ng nanay mo para tanungin lang kung anong oras ka gigisingin. Pero masaya talaga pag sabay-sabay tayong nagtatawanan sa mga videos na gaya nito. Eto pa. Eto pa. At ito pa. Kaya naman, heto na ang funniest Nakawall Videos. Ang natatanging show na bubusugin ang buong sambenan sa katatawanan. Ito ang bagong tambayan ng buong pamilya at barkada. Mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes nyo kami makakasama tuwing 4:30 p.m. Dito lang sa Net25. Dito, mapapanood natin ang best comedy videos na hinanap pa namin sa kasuluk-sulukan ng internet. So ano bang hinihintay nyo? Join na sa pinakabago at pinakamasayang afternoon habit ng tawanan at kulitan, ang funniest Nakawall Videos.
Welcome back. The Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, has approved the amended emergency use authorization given to 4 COVID vaccines that may be used as booster shots and additional doses. In a tape public address that aired Tuesday, FDA Director General Eric Domingo said that AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and Sinovac could be used as homologous vaccines or the same type of vaccine as a third shot. Let's listen in.
So ito po yung na-approve natin ngayong araw na ito para maggamit ng additional vaccination. Ibig po sabihin magdagdag na dose aside after the makomplete po yung primary series na isa or dalawang dose. Yung pong Pfizer ay na-approve natin as a homologous additional third dose. Ibig po sabihin kapag nakadalawang Pfizer, after 6 months, maaari pong magbigay ng isa pa. Yung AstraZeneca ay approved din po as a homologous third dose. Ganon din po ang Sinovac. Ang Sputnik Light po, ito po yung single dose na Sputnik, ay na-approve natin as an heterologous booster. Ibig po sabihin, maaari po siyang ibigay na pangatlong dose sa mga pasyente na katanggap ng ibang bakuna. Yun din naman pong Department of Health ay na marami rin po tayong inaral doon sa mga combination and marami pong combination ng heterologous vaccine combinations na in-approve po natin na maaaring gamitin ng Department of Health starting po ngayong linggo na ito.
The Philippine National Police, or PNP, has logged only 7 new cases of coronavirus disease or COVID-19 among its personnel. In its COVID-19 cases update released Wednesday, PNP data showed 37 new recoveries for a total of 41,862 since the start of the pandemic. Deaths remained at 125, while active cases stand at 137. Cases nationwide are on a downward trend with only 849 new COVID-19 cases. The lowest single-day case count for 2021 logged on November 16. More Filipinos are protected against the disease. As of November 15, the total number of vaccine doses administered has reached 70,677,771. Fully protected Filipinos are now at 31,868,120. With its goal of vaccinating 70% or 77 million of the Philippines' total population, the national government is on track to fully inoculate half of this number and administer at least one shot to 54 million Filipinos by the end of the month. More police personnel, 92.25%, or 208,238 have been fully vaccinated, while those partially vaccinated are at 6.58%, or about 14,854.
Meanwhile, President Duterte on Monday approved the recommendation of the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases to lift the mandatory use of face shields in areas under Alert Level 1 to 3, and he urged the public to make sure that the COVID-19 positivity rate in the country will continue to go down by following the health and safety protocols. Here's Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles.
The memorandum states that the President has approved the IATF's recommendation to adopt the following protocols on the use of face shields. The main points are as follows. First, in areas under alert levels 1, 2, and 3, the use of face shields in community settings shall be voluntary. Second, in areas under alert level 5 and under granular lockdowns, it shall be mandatory to use face shields in community settings. Also, under the said directive from the Executive Secretary, face shield use is still mandatory in medical and quarantine facility settings and shall still be required for healthcare workers in healthcare settings. Third, in areas under Alert Level 4, local government units and private establishments shall be given discretion to mandate the use of face shields. Ulitin ko po, batay sa memorandum ni ES Medialdea, malinaw po na dito sa Metro Manila at sa mga lugar sa ilalim ng Alert Level 1, 2, at 3, hindi na po required ang mga face shield sa mga pampublikong lugar. Sa mga lugar sa ilalim ng Alert Level 4, nasa discretion po ng mga LGU at mga private establishments. Sa mga lugar po naman na nasa ilalim po ng Alert Level 5 at nasa ilalim ng granular lockdowns, required pa rin po ang face shields.
According to Eli Perencevich, doctor, an infectious disease doctor at the University of Iowa and the Iowa City Veterans Affairs Healthcare System. Face shields are easy to wear correctly and good at blocking droplets, so they really are a better option for protection. Berencevich also said, and his colleagues published a report. They republished a report in JAMA last month arguing that face shields have more COVID-fighting potential than standard masks when used with increased testing, contact tracing, and social distancing.
And thousands of children in the Philippines were allowed to return to classrooms Monday for the first time since the start of the coronavirus pandemic, as pilot reopening of schools got underway. Watch this.
Sa among pamilya, damdagi.
Kamay wave! Wave, okay, wave! Okay! Pero yung permina to sa lobon kaya Denmark? Sa kaya Denmark?
Sa permiro jud gani ma'am, di gani ko musugot sa amo ang kuan, sa amo ang pag face to face class kay ang amo lagi ma'am mo lagi ni kay di nato makita ang ato ang kuan karon kining kontra nato nga COVID. So mo na nga sa pagkakita sa nako nga sa aktual na gyud nga ang ilahang sa protocol sa kuan, sa protocol sa DepEd nga kuan gyud sila ning comply sila sa social distancing or kuan mo nga ning uyod jud ko gyud pod.
Hello, Lisa. Morning, sir. Yellow. Ana dinhi pikas. Ya ana dinhi.
Meanwhile, Cambodia has announced that fully vaccinated foreign travelers can visit the kingdom without quarantine from Monday, giving a boost to the COVID-hobbled tourism industry. Travel restrictions imposed to tackle the pandemic put the brakes on Cambodia's burgeoning tourism industry. Revenue plummeted to $1 billion last year, down from nearly $5 billion in 2019, when the country attracted 6.6 million visitors. Prime Minister Hun Sen made an unexpected announcement on Sunday night that all fully vaccinated international travelers, tourists, and business people could visit the whole of Cambodia freely without quarantine from Monday. The decision overrode the previous reopening plan, under which popular beach spots, Sihanoukville and the island of Koh Rong, as well as Dara Sakor, a Chinese-developed resort zone, were set to welcome visitors from November 30. Hun Sen said travelers would have to show 2 negative tests, one taken no less than 72 hours before travel and one on arrival in Cambodia. Unvaccinated travelers will have to quarantine for 14 days. Cambodia was spared the worst of the pandemic in 2020, but has recorded the bulk of its nearly 120,000 cases since April this year. The country has won praise for its swift vaccination program. 88% of its more than 60 million population have been fully jabbed.
Some 100 Filipinos have been afflicted with COVID-19 abroad over the last 7 days, the Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, said Tuesday. As of this posting, 8,348 are undergoing treatment from the illness. At least 1,732 are in the Asia-Pacific, 959 in Europe, 5,549 in the Middle East and Africa region, and 108 in the Americas. The agency also logged 47 new recoveries, pushing the total number to 14,185. From the period of November 8 to November 16, 2 fatalities were recorded in Asia-Pacific. In a statement, DFA vowed to continue extending necessary aid to all Filipinos who may be infected with the virus. The DFA, together with its Foreign Service post, continues to monitor and assist our nationals abroad amidst the pandemic, it said. Since the pandemic began in 2020, a total of 23,960 confirmed cases among Filipinos had been recorded in 103 countries or territories, according to DFA. Alma and I will be back after this short break.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa new era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
ang isa sa mga lalawigan dito sa ating bansa at ating alamin ang kanilang malalim na kasaysayan, saganang likas na yaman at napakakulay na kultura, ang Quezon Province. Dito lang yan sa Tara! Ating pasyalan. Let's go!
Welcome back. Flag carrier Philippine Airlines remains cautiously optimistic as its flight operations reach 40% of its pre-pandemic flight frequencies, according to an executive on Tuesday. We view the current situation as a prelude to revenge travel. However, we remain cautiously optimistic, ensuring that safety remains the cornerstone of our operations. That, according to PAL spokesperson Chelo Villaluna, telling that to the Philippine News Agency. Pre-pandemic PAL flies an average of 300 flights per day. Now, the carrier is operating an average of 120 domestic and international flights per day. In a statement, PAL said it anticipates a surge in travel demand with the gradual improving health situation in the country. And as such, it has resumed regular weekly flights to Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, Honolulu, Guam, Toronto, Vancouver, London, Singapore, Bangkok, Jakarta, Phnom Penh, subject to specific travel requirements. Other international destinations are Auckland, Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, Kuala Lumpur, Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh, Saigon, Seoul, Tokyo, Fukuoka, Osaka, Nagoya, Hong Kong, Taipei, Dubai, Dammam, Riyadh, and Doha. For domestic operations, PAL has regular flights from Manila to Lawag, Legazpi, Puerto Princesa, Busuanga, Bacolod, Cebu, Catarman, Calbayog, Dumaguete, Antique, Iloilo, Calibo, Caticlan, Rojas, Tacloban, Tagbilaran, Butuan, Cotabato, Cagayan de Oro, Dipolog, Davao, General Santos, Siargao, Ozamis, Pagadian, and Zamboanga. From Cebu, PAL flies to Bacolod, Butuan, Cagayan de Oro, Caticlan, Clark, Davao, Siargao, Tacloban, and Zamboanga. PAL also flies to Tawi-Tawi from Zamboanga.
Meanwhile, the national carrier Vietnam Airlines on Tuesday received a foreign air operations certificate issued by U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA. With the certificate, Vietnam Airlines becomes the first Vietnamese airline to operate direct flights to the U.S. The first direct flight is scheduled to depart from Ho Chi Minh City in the evening of November 28 and arrive in San Francisco 13 hours and 15 minutes later, said Vietnam Airlines CEO Lee Hong Ha. The return flight will leave San Francisco on the evening of November 29 and arrive in Ho Chi Minh City on December 1 with a flight time of 16 hours and 40 minutes. From December this year, there will be 2 flights per week, and the frequency could be increased to 7 when the COVID-19 pandemic is put under control and Vietnamese government allows resumption of regular international air routes. The wide-body aircraft Boeing 787-9 and Airbus A350 will be used for the direct flights. In November last year, Bamboo Airways was licensed by U.S. Department of Transportation to carry passengers and cargoes between Vietnam and the U.S. The airline is also allowed to use wide-body Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner to fly directly from Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City to international airports in the U.S., such as those in Los Angeles and San Francisco. The opening of Vietnam-U.S. direct routes are expected to tighten comprehensive ties between the two countries.
In other news, Asian markets turned lower today as a recent rally ran out of steam and investors struggled to match a strong lead from Wall Street. New York's 3 main indexes rose again after a data showed a forecast busting rise in retail sales as well as solid earnings from shopping giants Walmart and Home Depot. The news reinforced optimism about the recovery in the world's top economy and showed consumers were brushing off the effects of surging inflation for now. However, they also provided more support to calls for the Federal Reserve to act sooner to prevent overheating and make sure prices do not run out of control. Now, in early trade, Hong Kong retreated for the first time after a 6-day run-up, while Tokyo, Shanghai, Taipei, Seoul, Singapore, Sydney, and Wellington were also in the negative territory.
Renewable energy firm Solar Philippines Nueva Ecija Corporation, or SPNEC, will raise funds to put up its largest solar project in Southeast Asia and boost the country's renewable energy capacity. SPNEC got the nod of the Philippine Stock Exchange, or PSE, and Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, for an initial public offering, or IPO, next month. The company is offering 2.7 billion shares for 1 peso apiece between December 1 and 7 as the renewable energy firm targets to raise 2.7 billion pesos. It will use 1.3 billion pesos from the IPO to complete its first 50-megawatt project, while the excess will be used for land banking. Solar Philippines founder Leandro Leviste thanked the PSE and SEC for approving this IPO, which aims to give the public a new option to invest in and increase the capacity of the Philippines.
The news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. Esther and I will be back right after this.
Welcome sa pinakabagong game show ng Net25. Maraming salamat po sa napakainit na pagtanggap niyo sa akin para maging bahagi ng saya at panalo agad-agad.
It's been a while and you deserve it. But dimples should be seen everywhere.
Kaya simulan na natin ang pamimigay ng agad-agad na kasiyahan at siyahan dito sa newest game show na diskarte at bilis ng kamay ang puhunan. 3 rounds ang paglalabanan ng 4 na players. Isa sa kanila ang magwawagi ng 20,000 pesos na posibleng umabot ng hanggang 100,000 pesos!
Sigurado ako maiuwi ko ang premyo na 20,000. Sigurado ako.
Yan!
Nasa akin eh.
Bakit dapat sa yan?
Nakita ko dun eh. Kala ko, tara, game! Agad-agad! Kinuha ko.
Ito na ang pangalawang agawan choices. 17,100. O. 12,000. C. 400,000. D. 1.7 million. Agad-agad. Pinindot siya ni Wes, so ikaw ang sasagot na to. Natakot ka sa numbers.
Pag numbers kasi, kainis eh. Pero pag talent free numbers, masaya yun.
Alex, sino ang pinipili mong sasagot ng tanong na yan?
Wilma.
Ang bilis.
Alam mo bakit?
Bakit?
Wilma doesn't know.
And I'm your Tara Game Master, Aga Mulak. And this is Tara Game!
Agad! Agad!
Welcome back. Top class tour badminton returns to Asia for the first time in 10 months as men's world number 1 Kento Momota heads a strong lineup for 3 events in Indonesia, culminating in the season-ending World Tour Finals. Olympic gold medalist Victor Axelsen of Denmark is seeded to meet Japan's Momota in the final of this week's Indonesia Masters, which also features Tokyo bronze winner and home favorite Anthony Ginting. But Olympic silver medalist Chen Long will be missing, along with all players from China, for the first of 3 back-to-back events on the resort island of Bali beginning Tuesday. Ginting said he was grateful to be able to play at home again, even though there will be no spectators allowed inside the strict bubble to which the players will be confined for 3 weeks to protect them from the coronavirus. Not only Team Indonesia, but all the players have waited to play in front of huge crowds like we had during previous tournaments in Jakarta, according to Ginting. He further said, "We're still trying to be grateful that the tournaments could be resumed." Women's world number 1 and Olympic silver medalist Tai Zhu Ying of Taiwan is also skipping the Indonesia events, while China are not sending any players, meaning Olympic champion Chen Yufei will also be absent. Top seed in the women's will be Akane Yamaguchi, the world number 3 from Japan, who will face a field featuring Olympic bronze medalist PV Sindhu of India and second seed Ratchanok Intanon of Thailand. Asian badminton fans have been starved of action for almost 2 years because of the pandemic. The last BWF World Tour events to take place on the continent were held in Thailand in January without spectators, as were the Tokyo Olympics.
Indonesian President Joko Widodo takes on his custom motorbike to test the new Mandalika International Circuit in Lombok Island. Take a look.
Dukung penyelenggaraan event-event kelas dunia di kawasan Mandalika ini seperti yang sebentar lagi akan diselenggarakan, yaitu World Superbike 2021 dan dilanjutkan nantinya di bulan Maret 2022 dengan MotoGP.
Sirkuit Mandalika ini sirkuit baru. Dan tadi kan juga baru saja hujan. Jadi saya nggak berani ngebut. Meskipun nggak ngebut, tapi saya kira yang lain-lain jauh jauh tertinggal. Banyak tikungan yang tajam-tajam sekali. Di sini kan ada 17 titik tikungan yang saya kira semuanya sulit lah untuk saya. Kalau untuk pembalap mungkin nggak ada masalah, tapi untuk saya sangat sulit. Ya kita harapkan muncul titik pertumbuhan ekonomi baru di NTB. Saya kira ini sebuah perhelatan besar yang setiap tahun terus akan diadakan di sirkuit Mandalika, dan itu dipastikan akan memberikan dampak pertumbuhan ekonomi di provinsi NTB.
The street circuit will host World Superbike and Asia Talent Cup races this month and is scheduled to host MotoGP in March next year. Widodo was riding his customized Kawasaki W175 retro motorcycle along with some of his ministers and other officials. The 4.3-kilometer long circuit will be MotoGP's first street circuit. Indonesia has been absent in MotoGP calendar for more than 20 years after the race in Sentul International Circuit in West Java in 1997.
What a cool president.
Yes, I would love to borrow his customized motorcycle, Alma.
Do you know how to motorbike?
Yes.
You do?
I use
do too.
motorcycle every day when going to work. And with all other errands, Alma.
Be safe then. Thank you, Esther, always for keeping me company.
You're always welcome, Alma, and that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian region. Thank you for joining us today here in ASEAN in Focus. I'm Esther Adanga from Thailand Bureau, and we'll live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same place, here on ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.